Welcome to the Wealthy Speaker Podcast, a show chocked full of strategies for scaling your speaking business. Now here's your host, coach to the industry superstars, Jane Atkinson.
Well, welcome everyone to the Wealthy Speaker Podcast. I'm your host, Jane Atkinson, and today we are in for a treat. I'm probably as excited as anyone to hear from my friend, my former client, Paul Templer. Welcome to the show, Paul.
Hi, Jane. Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. It's good to see you.
Have we really known each other for 26 years?
Yeah. Yep.
How is that possible? Because I had a note in my file that we worked together like 10 plus years ago, but 26 years, that is
Right.
really something. I apologize for taking so long to have you on the show because your story is quite not something that you hear every day, people. And we're not going to bury the lead. We're going to talk, I think we're going to name this show A Bad Day at the Office. Tell everybody about your bad day at the office story.
Right. Well, Jane, first, 26 years ago when we met, it was right at the beginning of the 2000s, and I just arrived in America, and I had gotten married, and I was starting this life, and I was caught up in this wanting to make a difference and wanting to help people and wanting to do things. And I didn't know how to do it, but I had just come out of a bad day at the office. And that had happened when, in my life just leading up to that, part of it, I was a safari guide. I used to lead photographic safaris on the Zambezi River. And one afternoon, it was just another day in paradise. And we were on a canoe trip. We were drifting down the mighty Zambezi River towards Victoria Falls. When I say we, there was me, I was the guide in charge. I had two apprentice guides, and we were each in Canadian style canoes. They had 3 seats. There was a guide at the back and then 2 clients in each canoe. So we had 6 clients, 3 canoes, and we had a safety kayaker. Mike, he was a friend of mine. He was paddling a little red kayak, which turned out to be quite instrumental in my bad day at the office. So anyway, we're paddling down the river. There's me, there's Ben, one of the other guides, Evans, another one of the guides, and a bunch of clients. And it's just glorious. I mean, we're in the great outdoors. There's elephants cavorting. There's just this prolific bird life, crocodiles. And at one point, we came across this pod of hippo. They were just submerged, wallowing in the shallows. So pulled the group together and we started to chat about hippos. And when I take safaris, there would always be someone who had watched a National Geographic safari show, and they would say, "Did you know hippos are responsible for killing more people every year than any other animal?" So I told them, yeah, I'd heard that, which is why we weren't going to get too close. And so there was this pod of hippos. I decided to just paddle around them. I'd been doing this for years. I wasn't complacent or arrogant, but I was fairly confident because there was a way to do this. And I said, "Follow me." So we paddled around the hippos. I made my way to this little channel that was relative safety. I looked behind me to make sure everyone was where they were supposed to be. And sure enough, Ben with 2 of the clients was right behind me. And Mac, the guy in the safety kayak, was right there. Evans, though, had dropped back a bit with his clients. So I just took a moment to relax and wait for him to catch up. I put my paddle down and just soaked in the scenery. It was that just incredible dusk light, and life was good until suddenly there was this sound behind me. It was the sound made when a hippo hit the back of a canoe. And I turned just in time to see the canoe that Evans was in up at about a 45-degree, with Evans being catapulted out of his canoe into the river. Somehow the canoe managed to land upright. my mind sprung into crisis mode. First things first, I needed to get everyone to safety. So I called to Ben, the other guy, Ben, get everyone to safety. To Evans, who is now in the river, washing towards this pod of hippos that we had just tried to avoid. I knew I needed to get to him quickly. So I didn't have time to drop my clients off. But this also wasn't my first rodeo. It wasn't the first time I'd been attacked by hippos or had something like this happen. And we'd practiced a rescue. So I called, I'm coming to get you. And I'm paddling in towards him for all I'm worth when suddenly I just see this bow wave, like in these old movies when you saw a torpedo coming towards a ship, and this wave is rushing in towards me. And I know that's the hippo coming for me, but I also knew that if I slapped the water with the flat of my paddle, it makes a loud noise, and the hippo would turn. So I did that, and I mean, my boat rocked up, but the hippo turned around. Now Evans is really freaking out. So I'm like, hang in there, bud. I'm coming to get you. And I pull up alongside him and I lean over, and it's almost like a made for Hollywood moment, because as I lean over and our fingers almost touch, the water between us just erupted. And my world went dark and strangely quiet. A few very long seconds ticked by as I try to figure out what was going on. You see, from my waist up, I wasn't dry, but I wasn't wet either, not like my legs were. I struggled. I couldn't do anything. I was trying to figure out what was going on and where I was. And somehow or other, I managed to get one hand free. And feeling around, I felt the bristles on a hippo's snout. So at least now I know where I am. I'm up to my waist down a hippo's throat. One of the starkest memories of that time was the incredible sense of relief, if that's a thing. Because if there were two fears I had on the river, it was getting attacked by hippo was number two, but number one was getting attacked by a crocodile.
Oh.
At least now I thought I got a chance. So I'm trying to get away, and then quickly that hope goes to despair, because I'm like, oh, I'm not going anywhere, no matter what I do. And I guess I must have been wedged far enough down this hippo's throat. And I'm a pretty big guy. It must have been uncomfortable, because he like starts coughing and spits me out. As he does so, I grab a hold of the tusk and I push myself and I come to the surface, and I come face to face with Evans, the guy I was trying to rescue. I'm like, we got to get out of here, man. And I start swimming. And I get the spidey sense that all is not well. So I turn around and I look, and Evans isn't going anywhere. He's
no.
right where I've left him. I mean, yeah, his eyes are like saucers as he's struggling to stay afloat. I think terror and panic was literally overwhelming him. So I turned and swam back for him. And yeah, he was fighting. And I managed to get behind him and grab a hold of him in a classic lifesaver's hold when wham, I was hit from below. Once again, I'm up to my waist down the hippo's throat. This time my legs are down and my hands are free. So I'm getting thrashed around and I'm trying to grab a hold of my gun. I had a 357 Magnum revolver with me just in case something like this happened. I mean, I didn't get close to it as the hippo like shook me around. All I really accomplished during that phase was to avoid drowning. Anyway, the hippo spits me out again. This time, when I break the surface, I look around. There's no sign of Evans. I think that means that Ben, the other guide, or Mac in the safety kayak must have rescued him. And I think, good, time for me to get out of there. And I'm swimming along and I'm making pretty good progress. And I remember coming up with one stroke, and I just see this monster charging in towards me with his mouth wide open as he zeroes in before scoring a direct hit. His huge tusks tearing through my torso. And this time he went berserk. one of the clients watching said it was like watching a vicious dog trying to rip apart a rag doll. He just like thrashed me around. When we went in the water, underwater, all I could do was hold my breath so I didn't drown. And then figured out if I held on to the tusks, then my flesh didn't tear so much as he shook me all around. At one point, I remember this hippo threw me up into the air, and I did this crazy sort of half twist before falling back into his mouth. And when he caught me, he bit down so hard that I thought he was going to chop me in half. After doing that for a while, I guess the hippo got tired and he dove for deep water with me in his mouth. This led to probably one of the most surreal moments of my life. I remember lying on the bottom of the river. So there I am. I'm wedged in this hippo's mouth. His tusks are boring through me. And I'm lying at the bottom of the river and I'm looking up and I can see these different hues. There's green and yellow. I can see the sunlight shimmering on the water's surface. And I remember just thinking to myself, I wonder who can hold their breath the longest.
Hmm.
And then I watched my blood mingling with the water. And I was like, I wonder if I'm going to bleed to death or if I'm going to drown. I just lay there, and this peace was broken only by the hippo surging to the surface and spitting me out again. This time when I came up, I looked, and right in front of me was my friend Mac, the other guide, his little red crocodile bay kayak, the safety kayak. I managed to grab a hold of the handle on the boat's nose. The hippo wasn't giving up, though. He was thrashing into us, and Mac just showing just incredible courage, hung in there. He's back paddling to this rock for all he's worth. I'm holding on. The hippo's doing its best efforts. And somehow we managed to get to this rock and get up onto it where the hippo couldn't climb onto us. Got to the rock and I was like, whew. I guess wiring from my time as a soldier, I had the privilege of serving in the British Army, had me look across and I saw my clients. They were sitting on a rock next to us and they were looking pretty freaked out. And I was like, all right, folks, you need to calm down. Everything's gonna be okay.
Oh my gosh.
And they just looked at me with this look of horror and disbelief. Having witnessed what had just happened, none of them could believe that I was still alive.
And what were the injuries that you suffered? You probably didn't know in this moment what was going to happen.
In the moment, I didn't know, but I knew I was a hot mess, Jane. First off, I looked around and it turns out when I got to the hospital, they did the math. There were 38 major bite wounds.
Oh,
My left arm from um, it was a mess. It was just hanging on by bits and pieces. The technical term is degloved. So the skin had all been pulled off and the bones had been shattered in so many places. The only way we could keep it attached was actually to roll down the sleeve of the shirt that was left and button it up. I had both of my shoulders, I had tusks went through both shoulders, so that was a hot mess. My head, my spine, my back. When I tried to speak, my lung had been punctured. Technical term, a tension pneumothorax. But we had pretty extensive paramedic training, so this was actually pretty cool. My friend Mac, because when I'm speaking to him, blood starts frothing and bubbling out of my mouth. So we got this saran wrap off a tray of snacks and equalized the lung and sealed it.
oh my
And
gosh.
left leg, it looked like someone had tried to beat a hole through it with it. So I'm just this hot mess. Unfortunately, the radio, first aid kit, and gun have all gone. So we're having to MacGyver with whatever first aid kit we can conjure up. And we managed to stabilize me. When I say we, I think there was a little bit of divine intervention. There were things like one of my major arteries was severed, but the way it was severed when the hippo bit through it, there's an elasticity. So it got severed, and as it sucked in, it twisted itself and shut itself off.
Oh my gosh.
Um, I was skewered like a kebab, but the only major organ that was damaged was my lungs. So it was a bad day at the office, but it could have been a whole lot worse.
Bad day at the office. Now, Evans, talk about him. Did he survive this?
Unfortunately, he didn't. They found his body 3 days later.
Oh,
Um, Not a scratch on him. Apparently, he drowned. Um, yeah,
so he was stuck in that moment when you were trying to retrieve him and he just couldn't move.
yeah.
Not a scratch on him. Whoa. Um, Talk a little bit about this was something that fascinated me from the differences in countries and racism and what have you. What was some of the headlines about when your story made the news?
That's a great question. To me, it was a little unfortunate because at the time there was a lot of political uncertainty in Zimbabwe. And the international press were out there looking for a story. And for some reason, the fact that I was white and Evans was black seemed to be relevant. People
Yeah,
lost sight of the fact that we were two guys trying to take care of each other
yeah.
and that
Like
color was
for
irrelevant.
a white man going in to rescue a black man was the story. And I just thought that was something worth noting and
Mhm.
worth recognizing that in Zimbabwe is South Africa, correct?
Uh, just north of South Africa.
Just north.
So, yeah, just north of
I
South
just,
Africa. Yeah.
it just says something
Yeah.
about the world there. Okay.
I think it says, if you don't mind me just for a second, I think it says belabored because part of the healing process for me at the time, navigating it, when I was responsible for Evans, I'd known him for years. I'd nurtured him. I trained him. He was my guy.
Yeah.
He was one of my team, and it was he would have done exactly the same for me.
Yeah.
And the fact that it became a race thing was a little irritating.
Yeah. I get
Yeah,
that. I
yeah,
get that. Okay. So you walk away from a bad day. You don't walk away.
right.
You move away
Yeah.
a bad day at the office and you lose your left arm.
Believe it or not, I was lucky, Jane. When I got to the hospital, the surgeon thought that he was taking off both arms and one of my legs.
Oh,
Um, and this was one of the pivotal points for me. He told me afterwards that when he came in, that was fully his intent. They couldn't believe I'd lived. It took me about 8 hours to get to a hospital to have the surgery. They hadn't been able to give me any painkillers or what have you because of all my head, spine, and neck injuries. So that was a continuation of a bad day at the office. But he told me that he introduced himself shortly before I went under, and I said to him because I had heard the nurses and the people in the surgery talking about how big a mess I was. The arms were coming off, the leg was coming off, and I said to him, I said, Doc, I know that you're going to do what you got to do. But what do you say you take the minimalist approach? And he said he looked at me and he was, I mean, I don't remember this, but he told me he looked at me and he was like, what an arrogant SOB. He goes,
oh,
but if he's willing to fight, I don't think he's going to live from the first surgery. We'll give it a shot. And as a result, I woke up with one arm and two legs, but for that sentence. So talk about the power of language and the power of the
yeah.
word.
And advocating for yourself, I mean, it just I, I'm so impressed that you did make it out with two legs and one arm. Talk a little bit about your recovery and how long later did you land in America?
So the recovery was a little tough. We had to do some more surgeries. I got gangrene, and so then they had to chop off more of what I had left and then putting me back together. And frankly, I wasn't a very good patient. I was frustrated. I was angry. I was pissed off. I felt guilty. And that same surgeon one day, when I would get really revolting, the nurses would push me into a courtyard in a wheelchair. And there's only so much you can do in a wheelchair with one arm, no matter how angry you are. So I'd go round and round in circles until. And so his name was Dr. Nube. He came up to me one day and he said, "You know what, Paul? You're the sum of your choices. You're
Mm,
exactly who, what, and where you choose to be in life." And
mm,
when he said that, I remember looking at him and thinking, that's real easy for you to say, Doc. You're not the one lying here with bits and pieces missing. But
yeah.
as much as I ranted and vented, I knew he was probably right. Um,
And that was a turning point for you
yeah,
and recovery and, just who I know you to be since then.
right.
You you've taken on, first of all, you've spoken about resilience for years. I'm not sure how much keynote you're doing right now, but you have spoken about resilience for years. What are some of the things that you learned through your bad day in the off at the office? Like, what are some of your go-to resilience techniques today?
Mhm. Well, I think the one of the big things with Dr. Nube, with when he said that to me, was he showed me if I could just get glimpses of moments when I could see things as they are, like a degree of awareness, self-awareness versus how I want things to be, that was going to be way more powerful. I
Hmm.
could be the victim of the situation, or I could find something to do with the situation. So, as trivial as it sounds, just being able to build a modicum of self-awareness and awareness of the situation and not getting caught up in the narrative. He taught me that I can't be grateful and grumpy at the same time.
Oh, that's
Um,
good. So
and
simple,
so,
good.
I beg your pardon, Jay?
It's so simple, but so good. You can't be grateful and grumpy at the same time.
Right,
You can't hold
right.
two emotions. And so you were after that moment making different decisions and different choices about what was going on in your mindset moving forward.
Right. So, as much as I remember one day sitting on my veranda and feeling sorry for myself because every aspect of my life, my friends, my career, it had cost me a fortune, it had wiped me out financially. I could have played the victim. And there was also the river I'd been attacked on, the Zambezi, had never been canoed sourced to sea. So, when I was grateful for surviving, I thought, you know what, I've always dreamt of doing that. Why don't I put a team together and we give it a shot? So I got a prosthetist who built me a kayak paddle so I could paddle with one arm. I pulled a team together. I found the sponsorship for it and ended up 2 years after my attack leading what was at the time the fullest descent of the Zambezi River. We paddled almost 1,600 miles. It took about 3 months. And the only reason it wasn't the full descent is some rather nasty warlords in one of the areas forced us to skip a stretch of river.
Oh.
Um, Along the way, I'd hired a journalist from the US to cover the trip because we were launching a foundation to help kids who were stepping on landmines. He said, "Meet my sister." I met his sister. We fell in love and got married. And she didn't want to live in Africa. And I wanted her in my life. So I moved to America. And shortly thereafter, I went to an NSA conference and met you.
Oh my goodness. So, you're laying there maybe feeling sorry for yourself on some days, and then another day you're like, yeah, I'm just gonna go trek down the Zambezi River because and kayak for 3 months because and we'll raise money
Hmm.
for some kids. So you have a bent to you that has always been about making a difference. And
Hmm.
yeah, I mean, even until one of the most recent posts that I've seen of you, and I haven't seen very many, but I saw that you were going to do the things that you do. There have been moments when you yourself have been sick. There have been moments when you've gone through personal tragedy. There have been, so many things to derail you, Paul. What keeps you moving forward towards helping others? What is that driving force?
Jane, one of the reasons I was looking forward to this conversation today is we haven't caught up for quite a while, but it was almost going full circle because when I wanted to break into the speaking world, um, you 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 taught me how the privilege it is to be a speaker, how it gives us a podium and a platform to be able to take care of people and to further ideas that a lot of people don't have. And with the speaking platform, it got me into a lot of conversations that I would never have got into. And with that, the ability to make a difference. So um, this notion of um, you can't be grateful and grumpy at the same time, and self-awareness and self-regulation turned into doing just an incredible amount of research with the cutting edge thinkers and doers in neuroliteracy and neuroscience. And I got to work with the military and with corporations and find ways for people to live with agency and dignity that weren't just about suck it up and drive on. It was, what are some simple practices that we can bring to life? And so I was immersed in this world and was doing really well until one day my health went south. And I found out that just from top to bottom, cancer and friends, amoeba, pathogens, bacteria, flukes. I don't, I'm still, to this day, I'm still not sure what pathogens and flukes and things are. But everywhere from my brain to my lungs to my liver to my kidney to my pancreas to everywhere was just, I was a hot mess. And the doctors didn't really know where to start. And I could get no two doctors to agree. And I I got to a place where I didn't know what to do next. And my wife came in and announced that she wanted a divorce. So then things were like really ugly. And no fault in her, like it sometimes couples grow apart. But I was in a place where I needed to figure out what happened next. And I got my affairs in order and I did what anyone in that situation, I guess, would do. When I was in the army, we used to say you'll never find an atheist in a foxhole. So the first place I went was Jerusalem. I went and I prayed. And then the speaker world is incredible. A friend of mine, Gary Giller, he was the first amputee. He's got one arm to summit Mount Everest. He said, come to Nepal. And so he took me there. I met with the Karmapa Lama and then I went and trekked. And I was looking for healing. I didn't want to die. I had three young kids. But I knew that I needed to find peace. And then another friend of mine, a friend of yours, Yossi Ginsberg,
Yes.
he called me up and said, get on a plane to Bolivia. So he took me to the Amazon jungle to work with a shaman that had saved him. And I spent some time there. And then I ended up at the New York Center for Innovative Medicine with just cutting edge, just incredible approach to healing. And the thing that they all had in common, Jane, it didn't matter if it was a rabbi, a priest, a shaman, um, if it was a lama, it really didn't matter who it was, where it was. Underpinning everything was if I wanted to get healthy, the access point to that was be grateful, be kind, and do the next right thing. And
Mm.
those sound like just words, but the grateful and grumpy, it turns from a psychoneurophysiological perspective and from taking care of your immune system. When you're grateful, you have a different construct. Your
Yep.
body is more poised to heal itself. When you're kind, when you're finding ways to intentionally be kind to others is cool, and that produces a result. But really
Also,
being kind to yourself That one's difficult. And then the next right thing, micro tasks and micro celebrations, just doing the next right thing. From an evolutionary perspective, we're not designed to typically jump from the base of the mountain to the top. Sometimes we've got to take a couple steps, and living in that space, these became not only a strategic imperative for health, we could operationalize it. And it tied into all the research we were doing from a neuroscience perspective and a psychoneurophysiological perspective. So it's interesting. The journey continues. And unfortunately, shortly after that, um, like I mentioned, I got divorced, but I got healthy too. A year after being told, get your affairs in order and do it quickly, I was told, you're free. You're free and clear. You got a green light. And the friend I mentioned earlier, Gary, called me up and he said, hey, let's go for a run. And I agreed. I didn't realize I was signing up for the Marathon des Sables. It's supposed to be the toughest foot race in the world.
Oh my.
And but I thought, what the hell? I'm healthy. I have time. I have space. So my daughter, Erin, I used to put her in a jogging stroller and we would train and run and run and run. And then COVID came and that was awful. And then about a month into COVID, my daughter, Erin, she was 15, she died.
Oh my gosh. Because she had been
Um,
sick for a long time. Tell everybody what she had.
she had, Erin had, Erin very early on in life, they found it turned out to be benign, but they found out she had a brain tumor and she had intractable seizures, epilepsy, and she had a lot of things that we couldn't diagnose. She had a
Yeah.
lot going on. She was nonverbal, but Jane, she may not have been able to speak, but through her eyes and through her countenance, the way she faced each day's challenges head on without complaint, she was like the poster person for adversity doesn't build character nearly as much as it reveals it.
Ah,
Like she would just show up and show up and show up. And when we talk about resilience, I think a lot of people think resilience is this, I don't know, this aspirational state. What Erin reminded me every single day is no, resilience is something we build and we build it intentionally. And you know what? It's tough. And life is tough. And we can be grateful or grumpy and we can do it again.
yeah. There's somebody out there right now, Paul, who's in the thick of it, and they're listening to this
Hmm.
story, and maybe they're watching on YouTube and seeing you there thriving. You've just been through more treatments. You're not completely out of the woods
Hmm.
always. And they're gonna think, be grateful, be kind, and do the next right thing. That is,
Yes.
it's so simple, but it's so powerful. And I know that there are people out there that need that right in this moment. And you are a living testament to continuing to give back. You've had so many things go on in your life that would have broken people, and you carry on. And I just heard that you ended up getting married again to somebody that was in a part of my world, somebody who had been through
Uh-huh.
school. It's like, what? So
Right.
you continue. Talk about, did you write about this in that book that you wrote with Rebecca Simmons?
Yes, we did. We did. So Rebecca and I met at the beginning of COVID, and we really, on paper, and if those who know us both think, how did those two get married? Because it's opposites attract. I have just so much immense adoration for her, but trying to navigate Erin's death and make sense of COVID and everything that was going on, we got to look at, I'm a hodgepodge, Jane. I believe in everything from, I have a pretty strong Christian faith, but I also have a little smattering of a bunch of other religions, and I believe that crystals are a thing.
Yeah,
And
for sure.
and Re- Rebecca brings a more traditional, probably, approach. And then we throw in neuroscience and neurobiology. And publisher one day, I was chatting about a project we were working on. I told them that we were looking at a book about finding grace and grit where you least expect it.
Mm.
And she said, I'll publish that sight unseen. And we were really, really blessed because I think it forced us to, or it gave us the opportunity to focus what was good and right in our lives during COVID, rather than getting caught up in all the ick.
Let's say the name of the book again.
It's called Marked for Life,
Mark.
Finding Grace and Grit Where You Least Expect It.
Oh, I love that. And I'm assuming you can get it on all the places,
Yes, indeed.
books. Paul, your life is extraordinary. Get that book, read the book. I'm assuming it's going to cover some of these things that
Absolutely.
are
In
on in
depth.
life. And I just want to say congratulations.
Thank you.
You
Thank
know,
you.
when I think about 25 years ago, you're like, I don't know how to do this. I'm not sure what the first step is. And here we are.
Mm-hmm.
And when I think about all the lives that you have touched and influenced along the way,
Mm.
foundation, tell the name of your foundation as well.
It's called the Templar Foundation. It's a 501c3 based in here in the US, and we're dedicated to we help do a lot of work helping terminally and chronically ill kids and their families, and in other countries, setting up programs for women empowerment.
Oh, beautiful, beautiful. I just love that. If people want more information, they can go to paultemplar.com. But what's your favorite social to connect on? LinkedIn, or where do you like to be?
Um, I probably LinkedIn. I need to get better. I'm not the world's best social, but feel free to contact me via LinkedIn or Instagram. Yeah,
Okay. Okay. And it's Paul, Templer. We'll put a link to the book as well in the
right,
show
good,
notes.
right.
I
Thanks.
am, I'm I'm so happy you're still here on this planet, doing
Right.
this amazing good work, telling the stories and sharing messages like this that are so, so important for people who may have lost hope.
Thanks, Jane, and thank you for helping me find this platform and nurturing me along the way. And if there's anyone listening to this, the grateful, kind, next right thing. Um, if you want to explore that further, just let me know. Um,
Beautiful, beautiful. And with that, we're going to say thanks for listening, everybody. I hope this had impact. I hope this was worthy of your time. We'll see you soon, Wealthy Speakers. Bye for now.
Thanks for listening to the Wealthy Speaker Podcast. If you need help scaling your speaking business, head over to speakerlauncher.com and chat with us.